What are the top 5 frequently asked questions people have about divorce? So I want to talk about what these top 5 questions are that we get, the things that are frequently most asked. The number one is, how do I file for divorce? People want to know, how does this work? What goes on here? What do I need to do to start a divorce case? So filing a divorce, it's a lawsuit. You file a complaint through the court. It's the circuit court in the county where you live, or if you and your spouse live in different counties, which can sometimes be the case, then you got to figure out which county is going to make sense. But you file it in the county where you live and you go forward. So it's filing a lawsuit through the circuit court. That's how you start a divorce. That's how you file for divorce. So hopefully that clears that up a little bit. And then the second number one question, top 5 questions that we get are, how long does the divorce process take? So how long does a divorce take? So a divorce can take anywhere. It depends on if there's children or no children, if there's minor children or not children, because there's 2 different waiting periods, the way Michigan law does it, and the states all have different waiting periods based on their specific rules. But divorce with no children, there's a 60-day waiting period. So those take a minimum of 2 months. They can take longer. They're kind of a 2 to 6 month process. And then a divorce with minor children, there's a 6-month waiting period, and then they can be done a little sooner if there's exceptions, and they can take longer. So a divorce with minor children is a 5 to 8 month type of process. So in general, your divorce is anywhere minimum of 2 months, could be as much as 8 months. If there's no minor children, it's going to be more at the shorter end, depending on what's involved. It could be complicated. There could be a business that you own. There could be multiple businesses you own that need to be evaluated. There could be properties and things that have to be evaluated and could take some time. Maybe some forensic accounting needs to be done to figure some things out. So that can all be a factor, but in general, you're a 2 to 8 month process on a divorce. When there's minor children, you're going to be more at the longer end. If it's more complicated, it's going to be more at the longer end. But you're looking at divorce cases wrapping up in, certainly within a year of filing is going to be 80% of all divorces are done at that point for sure, and they can be a lot sooner too, depending on your situation, depending on minor children or no children. And then number 3, the top 5 frequently asked questions we get for divorce. Number 3 is, how is property divided in a divorce? So that's a big one. It's a broad topic. In general, if you've been married a long time, more than 20 years, and you kind of own everything together, there's no hidden things or unusual circumstances. There's no inheritance money sitting around or premarital assets, meaning things you own before the marriage. If this is just regular, couple kids got married, didn't own anything at the time they started, and now it's 20, 25 years later and they're getting divorced and everything they own is joint or would be considered joint because they've been together so long. In that situation, how property is divided is basically half and half. You both own half of everything, so you got to figure out what that means. If there's a house, you got to decide who's going to get the house and what to do with that. If there's retirement accounts, maybe you each keep your own. Maybe we need to equalize them. So property being divided is basically half and half, and then the tricky part becomes how to do that in a fair and equitable way if you're looking at things. Now, if there's shorter term marriage and you got premarital property, or there's a prenuptial agreement, or an inheritance, or other sort of unusual circumstances, those can come into play. That can lead to something different than a 50-50 split on property. So in general, that's how property gets divided. And then number 4 out of these top 5 frequently asked questions that we get with divorce is, how is child custody determined in a divorce? So you're getting divorced, you have minor children, you got to figure out what's going to go on with custody and parenting time. First of all, the way Michigan law does it, there's 2 categories to custody. There's legal custody, which is like decision-making authority, and there's physical custody. But I think the question people typically have is, how is custody determined, as in, how do you decide who the kids are going to live with and what that's going to look like? Are they going to live with one parent and the other person has parenting time? Are they going to live with both parents and it's more like joint custody? So how that's determined, first of all, is by agreement. That's going to be, over 90% of divorce cases, you ultimately reach an agreement on what to do as far as custody and parenting time. But if you cannot reach an agreement, you're looking at what are called the best interest of the child factors. So there's these 12 factors that they look at under Michigan law, they meaning the court, and they evaluate that situation, and they look at all sorts of different things with who's been raising the children, who's the primary caregiver, how this is all set up now, and then now that you're going your separate ways, what's going to make the most sense for the kids. Should they be with one parent? Should it be a shared custody arrangement? Should they be with the other parent? So they're looking at these best interests of the child factors, and you can look them up online. There's these 12 different factors, but that's how custody in general gets determined. And then the fifth question, these frequently asked questions that we get with divorces, is how much will a divorce cost? We get that question all the time. It's the number one thing people ask when they first call in. Probably the only thing we can't answer in a 5 or 10 minute discussion. They're not all the same. We can't just say we're going to charge this number for all divorces, no matter what's involved, because they're all different, and we don't want to be throwing out numbers that are too high or too low. So then what is the cost? Well, the cost involves a filing fee with the court, which can be as little as $175 or as much as $255 when there's minor children. And then you're paying an attorney by the hour. So we work hourly rate and we do a retainer. How much that retainer is, I mean, it varies so broadly, there's no way of really saying. You can look, New York Times has published some articles about average total cost of divorce, probably more from the perspective of throughout the United States. They don't usually just get into like what's one state and their data, and they'll tell you average is $10,000 as a total. It can certainly be less than that. It could turn into more. That's a tough one to answer. Probably why everybody's always asking that question, because it is difficult to answer, and it's something you want to know. So that one hard to say, but those are the frequently asked questions we get. Those are the top 5. Hope that helps. Thanks.